Hello everyone and welcome to Full Sail on Air. This event is being live streamed and recorded, so please be courteous, don't obstruct the cameras, and if you must exit early, please close the doors behind you softly. The use of flash photography and unauthorized video or audio recording is also prohibited. There may be a question and answer portion to the show. If you have a relevant question, please raise your hand and wait for a microphone to be brought to you. Once you have the mic, hold it close to your mouth so everyone in the room and online can hear your question. The show is about to begin, so please silence your cell phones and put away your laptops now.
Good morning. Welcome. I'm Jackie Otero. I'm the program director of the Entertainment and Music Business Bachelor's Degree programs here at Full Sail. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning. I'm very excited to be welcoming our guest today. For almost 3 decades, Camille Barbone has consulted with major music and entertainment companies, including Sony, Arista, Universal, Warner Chappell, and more, as a creative marketing, artist development, and publishing specialist. Camille discovered an unknown artist named Madonna and became her original artist manager. She has acted as vice president of artist relations and GM for Aezra EMI Records and president of Stadium EMI Records. She's worked with artists such as Kanye West, Ludacris, Snoop Dogg, Blake Shelton, and more. Camille has also owned and operated 2 state-of-the-art recording studios, Gotham Sound in New York City and Longview Farm Recording in Massachusetts. I'm so excited that she's joining us today. Please give a warm welcome to Camille Barbone.
Thanks, Jackie. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Camille Barbone. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to work at Full Sail for a morning. And I have to tell you, when Full Sail became an entity in the music industry, when it became real important to the new people that were coming into the industry, I applauded it. We need this. We need to be able to recognize the fact that the music industry is not only a multi-billion-dollar business, but it is an industry that's complex, intricate, and requires a great deal of knowledge to be successful. The difference between this and other industries is that we're dealing mostly with living, breathing commodities. Whether you're an artist or a songwriter or you aspire to be on the business side, you're dealing with people. And when you deal with people, anything can happen. So I'm going to focus this morning on artist management. You either want to be one or you're going to need one if you're an artist. Obviously, there are a lot of other things that you can do for in the music industry and for the music industry. But artist management has a tendency to make you ready for anything you would like to do in the industry. If you look at the history of record label presidents, they were either attorneys or they were artist managers. Why? Because both roles deal with such a diverse number of issues, topics, and industries. As a manager, you need to know about selecting the artist, the great songs that an artist can perform, how an artist should perform on stage. But there's so much more you need to know as a manager. You have to be a specialist in a lot of different fields in order to consult and advise your client on the best way to achieve the goals. Now, artist management is a pretty tight relationship. It's based on a fiduciary responsibility. Does anyone in the audience know what fiduciary means? Okay. It means trust. It's based on trust. Now, we read the headlines, we see what goes on in newspapers, and we say trust is out the window because a lot of things happen with managers and artists that get blown up out of proportion and sensationalized, and everyone takes sides. We're seeing that going on with the Taylor Swift's Scooter Braun situation. We're seeing it a number of times. The truth of the matter is an artist management role is a really important role, but it's also a very powerful role. And when an artist gives that responsibility to someone, they have to make sure that that's the right person. Why? You're dealing with the artist's finances. You're dealing with the career. You're dealing with personal issues. You're dealing with the everyday, moment-by-moment life of an artist. And you're also acting as a liaison between the artist and the entire industry, and related industries like film and television and music publishing and gaming and all the other end users of entertainment. So how do you find a good artist manager? What to look for in a good artist manager? Well, the obvious choice is that manager really needs to know a lot about the business. So you want someone that's either worked for a record company, worked for other managers. If you folks are ever looking for an internship, my advice to you would be to try and gravitate to an artist management company. Why? Because they handle everything. The way Full Sail is laid out, you're getting all the elements that you would use in artist management. There's one artist management course, but you've got contract negotiations, you've got marketing, you've got event planning. Those are all the things that sit in the wheelhouse of artist management. It's the right position because we're dealing in a 360 type of deal mode all the time. Now, we're going to have Q&A at the end, but I'll ask if anybody has an answer to a question that I'm looking for. Does everyone know what a 360 deal is? Okay. Basically, the record companies put it together so that they share in the income, not only in recorded music sales or streaming now and downloads, but everything that goes on. Now, the rationale for that was, we're going to give you a longer contract, and we're going to get involved in artist development. Truth of the matter is, reality versus what we hear, truth of the matter is, they really don't get too involved in artist management and artist development. They get involved in the business of business, which means artist managers have a responsibility to help their artists grow. How do you do that? You do that by knowing your artist 100%. Type of music, the type of artist. Okay, if you have contracts in hip-hop music and you know what's going on in the hip-hop world, should you sign a pop artist? Or should you, as a manager who manages pop artists, be approached by a hip-hop artist? Is it a right match? There needs to be compatibility. There needs to be a certain level of knowledge. Now, most of the time, young artists get out there and there's a friend that's saying, you're the best, you're the bomb, you're this, you're that, you're the other thing. I want to be a manager. That's not the right person, okay? The right person is somebody that really is as excited about the business end of music as the artist is about being an artist. Now, I mentioned earlier, why is artist management such a powerful position when it's disseminated across the industry? It is because it requires you to learn contract law. It requires you to understand about publishing, about digital downloads, about end users, about what is song trust, what is TuneCore, what is sound exchange, how do the PROs work? You need to know all this information in order to be a good manager. Because over the course of an artist's career, so many different situations arise. And so often, you're, as the manager, the voice of reason. You're the one that's actually going to help make that decision. Now, I will tell you this, okay? When everything goes well, everything goes right, okay? The artist did it, the songwriter did it, okay? But when everything goes wrong, buck stops here, okay? Management is a major responsibility, not to be taken lightly. But as far as I'm concerned, it provides you with the keys of the kingdom as far as the music industry, entertainment is concerned. Whether you want to be involved in gaming, wherever you want to be, you're dealing with people. You have to have a very broad idea of business, and you have to be able to articulate your thoughts. Now, it's a chess game, okay? Or it's being a quarterback in a very important football game, all right? You need to throw the ball, and you need to know where the ball is going to end and where that person or entity is that's going to receive it. So what's your end goal? As a manager, you have to say, okay, I want to manage artists that are already signed to record labels. Well, if you have experience, you can do that. Chances are, if you don't have experience, you're not going to get called up and asked to take up Ariana Grande's management agreement. It's just not going to happen, okay? So what you have to do is you have to learn. Now, you learn by coming to Full Sail and schools like Full Sail. But how do you take what you learn at Full Sail and apply it to the real world? It's pretty different out there, okay? This is pushing information towards you, and you're absorbing it. And from what I see in terms of your schedules, you're absorbing it at a very fast clip. I mean, I can't believe the schedule you folks have, and I completely commend you for your ability to keep up with this pace. It's an amazing pace. Okay, so you need to know as much as you can know. Take an internship at a booking agency. Take an internship at a publishing company. Not only will you see if these are opportunities that you might like, but it will prepare you to either find the right manager for you or be the right manager for someone else. And that's what's key here. Management has become more and more important to the artist because there are so many choices to make, right? So I think my general comment for this lecture is you must learn an awful lot in order to be effective as an artist manager. That's key here. Now, publishing is like the biggest mystery of the world. You know, people don't understand how publishing works. Digital music now has changed the way publishing is licensed, how it's paid out. It's all different because we have the wonders of the internet and online work and streaming and digital downloads. So learning each aspect of the business in a very hands-on way will prepare you and lead you to a point where somebody would say, hey, that's the right manager for me. Now, I have a formula when it comes to artists. If the artist and I don't have the same desire for success, it's not going to work. Sometimes artists don't know what they want. Sometimes songwriters don't know what they want. That's okay. They're on a journey the way we're on a journey in the business side of music. You have to ask the right questions. You have to be comprehensive about what you want in an artist and what an artist may want in a manager. So you develop who you are as a manager the way you would develop who you are as an artist. It's like artist development. This is management, artist management development. Okay. When do you need an artist manager? Okay. If you're gigging, if your social media is off the chain, if people are starting to call you as opposed to you calling them with regard to your career, it's time to get someone to help you, okay? Now, an artist manager serves as an anchor for an artist development team. We don't do this alone. But what that artist manager also acts as is the chairman of the board of that artist development team. It's the manager's total responsibility to keep everybody focused on what the goal is, everybody in the right direction, continuity, okay, standardization, stabilization, it's all manager, okay? Again, remember, we're talking about people, and people have attitudes, and people have experiences, and people have opinions. But if those attitudes and opinions differ from what the end goal is, it's the manager's responsibility to put everybody back on track. So if things are starting to happen, you need to have a manager. Now, it's not just artists. If you're a songwriter, if you're a producer, if you're an engineer, these are all roles that have been working with managers. Now, and this is not, it's pretty new in the last probably decade. Now, actors and actresses are starting to realize that they need a manager. In a lot of ways, people thought that they could just deal with booking agents. Okay, I got work. I'm good, I got work. But there's so much going on, in terms of dovetailing one career event onto another. that you really need somebody that's kind of got the 30,000-foot view and the ground level view going on all at the same time. Artists, creative types, we won't even narrow it down to just artists. Anybody generating creative properties, intellectual properties, whether that be games or whatever, they have a certain mindset, and they work in their brain on a certain side. It's not usually the business side, and it's also very difficult to promote yourself, which is why management exists. Once you find out what your artist needs, wants are, then you begin to sit down and make a plan. I coach for a living now. I don't manage, and I manage to find a lot of people that want to be artist managers, and I'm coaching them and teaching them how to do it right. You're the next generation here. Artist management is absolutely a snake pit, okay? There could be a lot of bad things going on there because you're handling money, because you're working for opportunities for your artists. Sometimes opportunities arise for the manager himself or herself. So again, back to that fiduciary responsibility, trust. A manager's responsibility is to get the best possible deal he or she can for his or her client, okay? We've all heard the phrase conflict of interest, okay? I can't be a record label executive and a manager at the same time. How do I negotiate that deal for my client if I have a vested interest in the best deal possible for the label and the best deal possible for the artist? So again, I have to be very focused and very singular in what my end goals are, what my responsibilities are, what the objective is relative to the artist. So, knowledge is one thing. Trust, honesty, moral compass, ethics, okay? If somebody hands you a check, artists generally turn over their power of attorney to managers. It's a pretty standard clause in a management contract where you have power of attorney. And the way it's laid out, managers get paid the money, take anything out that they've advanced, okay, and give the rest to the artist. So think about the opportunities there. There's a lot of opportunities to screw around with someone else's money, okay? So you have to be completely 100% above board and honest in order to do this. That's a really important aspect of artist management, trustworthy. Okay? You have to have the knowledge of the business. So we've got honesty, we've got knowledge of the business. Okay? You have to be tenacious. You have to have absolutely the most energy you could have. I have a private mantra, and my mantra is rejection gives me energy. Because there's a lot of rejection in the music industry. There's a lot of rejection in any industry with sizzle. Okay? Any industry with high-profile opportunities, fame, fortune, cash, and prizes, there's a lot of competition, okay? So you have to understand that you're vying for a very minute slot with regards to your artists. How many artists are signed to record deals in the course of a year? How many artists that are signed to a record deal actually sell enough product to be picked up for another recording or another cycle of their contract? Very few. I think it's about 2%. That's all. So what you have to do is you have to have the best plan, and it has to be a different plan. It has to be a plan that is going to beat out the opportunities other people are trying to create for their artists. So it's very important to know your goals as a manager based upon the information that you've gleaned with regards to the industry, okay? I think one of the most vital aspects of artist management is the development end of it. It's working with that artist to create the brand. So now you're an advertising executive, is what it comes down to. What is differentiating about your client? Whether that client is a songwriter or a producer or an artist, remember, it's differentiation. What's going to make that company take your client as opposed to the 1,500 other clients that are vying for that position or that role? Okay. When I started out in the music business, it was primarily a male-dominated field. Okay. It's a little different now. You've got a few, but not very different. Okay. I worked with male managers and pretty much was the only woman in boardrooms, in control rooms, at record label meetings for a lot of years in terms of the management thing. And the person that kind of motivated me was a woman manager by the name of Elizabeth Joel, who was married to Billy Joel and managed him as well. And she came to Columbia Records when I was there, and I watched her just work the crowd. Every department, she had something to say, something to do, something to talk about. The reason why I got into artist management was I basically knew a lot about the industry from the record label point of view, and meeting other managers in that industry led me to this role, and I said, this is all I want to do with my life. And it was a great choice. It enabled me to become the president of a record company, a vice president, CEO, a COO as well. I knew what was going on all the time, and it was kind of shocking to me when it first happened. I was pretty scared when I took my first big high-level executive job, and I realized everything that was going on was everything that I had done for myself as an artist manager and entrepreneur. Even owning the recording studios enabled me to understand recording budgets, how a recording is laid out. I'm going to take a tour of your studios. I can't wait to see it today. It's vital to understand every aspect of the business in order to give your artist what you need. So you find somebody that knows what you need to have in your corner, okay? The type of person, as I said, honest, okay, a real go-to person, hands-on person, good people skills, articulate, all those things, all right? Your client management relationship is so key. They have to understand how you think, and you have to understand how they think. Okay, you have to have an unshakable moral compass, as I said. Now, how do you work with a manager? To be a manager, you have to be a filter, all right? Someone that people have to go through to get to your client, okay? And you have to feel very comfortable and confident with the fact that your client is the power. Your client is what you're representing and what you're defining. It's not you, okay? There are a lot of people that take advantage of that. They're called sycophants. And what they choose to do is make their clients as pretty much helpless as possible. Why? Because it gives them complete and utter control to make all the decisions. I don't prescribe to that. If you ever wanted to be involved in artist management, my suggestion and advice to you would be to teach your artists everything they need to know about the music business. They need to understand the rationale for decisions. They need to understand what is good and what is bad about a certain project. And the only way that you can do that as a manager is to be as well-versed as possible yourself, but then to be able to articulate to your artists exactly what it is they need to do, say, or be in order to achieve their goal. Yeah. You need to know what's going on at all times. I'd call it ancillary service that you provide an artist is project management. You have to keep everything on a timeline. You have to keep everything in sync. Think about a 40-city tour. Few moving parts there, right? It's not something that's going to just unfold and happen. A lot of things go wrong, things get lost, people get sick, people get high, craziness goes on. And you are the manager, and you're responsible for it. You work in conjunction with a team at all times. One of those members of that team would be your production manager, the guy that goes your stage manager, the guy that goes on the road, your road manager. So again, it's interaction and knowledge about, now we're talking about trucking, now we're talking about airfares, airplanes, we're talking about storage, we're talking about maybe having to go through customs. Look at what you have to do here. If you want to be something important in the music business, you can be an executive at a gaming company, you can be a kick-ass booking agent, you can be a fabulous music publisher that picks hit songs, okay? But if you want to be something that is at the pulse, is at the cutting edge of everything, artist management, as far as I'm concerned, is a vocation that you want to look at. you know, everybody's heard what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And it's true in the music business, okay? There'll be moments where you feel like, I'm gonna die. But the truth of the matter is, you're not, you get through it, you learn about it, and on the other side, you come away with so much more information than you had before, and in a lot of ways, it makes you the most resourceful person in the world. You have to learn, you have to absorb, okay? You have to take the time to understand all you can about the business. It's very, very important. How am I on time in terms of Q&A? Because I want to give at least 15 minutes for people with, okay. Do I have to 10:45 or? Okay, okay. The most important thing that I realized as far as management is concerned is how much the record companies rely upon management, okay? It's not just get the artist here at 10 a.m. That manager is going to be responsible for the gap between what the record label is willing to do, is actually doing, and what needs to be done. So you're always on a diagnostic mode here. Most importantly, you must understand that managers basically work on spec. So unless you're successful, unless your artist is earning money, guess what? You're not, okay? Now, standard between 15 and 20%. Some managers take 25%. A management contract is your Bible, okay? Management contracts can run 3 to 5 years. They can run concurrent with any deals that you sign within the term of the management agreement. For example, I'm managing an artist. I get a record deal. My management contract is 3 years long. My record deal is 5 years long. As long as that record deal exists, my management agreement can extend. Now, pardon me, obviously you can have anything you want in a management contract, but what you want to do is you want to protect the amount of time, effort, energy, and expertise you've put into that. Very often young managers sign, they do great work, the artist is happening, breaking, and then the labels and industry sits down and says, we have a better manager for you. We'd like for you to meet so-and-so. They're managing this person, this way. What happens to that young manager that did the most difficult part of the process, which is getting the industry interested in that client? Well, your contract tells you whether or not you're protected. The contract tells you whether or not there's an override, whether or not you're still going to realize some monetary and emotional reward from the work you did with the artist. It's really important for you to understand that management contracts are your Bible, and you have to create one that fits and suits your needs as an artist manager. I'm using the same contract I used maybe 20 years ago. Of course, it's been updated to take care of all the new technologies, all the different ways of earning money and all that, but the basic clauses and conditions are the same, okay? Sometimes there's an initial term in a management agreement where you have to achieve a certain goal. Maybe it's getting a recording contract. If you're managing producers or engineers, maybe it's a certain monetary milestone that they've met in terms of production fees and engineering fees. If you're dealing with any type of artist, okay, there's always a first step. There's always something that triggers the signs of success. So that initial term happens. I get that record deal within a year. That gives me an option for 3 or 5 more years with that client, okay? Commissions, very important, okay? How advances are handled, what's excluded, all of these things are questions that you can ask in your contract and business negotiation classes here at Full Sail, but ask them in terms of an artist management agreement. Because as you know, this is a paper industry. Recording contracts are 50, 70 pages long. Publishing deals are about the same. Any of the deals you're dealing with that are long-term deals are long and lengthy because they're protecting the entity that's offering the deal. Now think about what a label is investing in an artist. unless it says it in the contract, they don't really have to invest anything. And there are a lot of labels that sometimes will sign an artist just to keep the artist off of the streets. That's called a catch and kill contract. Atlantic Records used to be killer that way. This was all in the dance music era, and it's happening again in EDM. Because it's such a glutted market, what labels are doing is they're actually signing people to not release them. So you, as a manager, have to look at that contract. Again, we're back to contract. You, as a manager, have to look at that contract and say, wait a minute, there's no guarantee of release here. So I need a different clause in that contract. Or I need to know how to remedy that so that I am not in a position where my artist has made a record and the record doesn't get released. You have to understand, a label actually, a big label, actually has enough money to put $250,000 into a release and then not release it, because they just need one hit to absorb all the losses. These are the things managers need to learn about. You have to understand what's going on in the industry. You have to understand why is this big thing going on between Scooter Braun and Taylor Swift and the Masters? Okay, most record companies either own or lease masters, at least up till now. I think it's going to help a great deal. But as a manager, okay, you have to look at these things. You have to look at every aspect of every contract that your artist contemplates entering into and make sure that it works for them. And in the long run, it works for you. Because again, remember, if your artist doesn't make money, you don't make money. Okay? High risk, okay? High return. Two types of managers. There's the manager that just takes on an artist that's already signed, and you become friends with the record labels, and you're usually a record label executive, and then you become a manager, and the label calls you up and says, hey, Jim, so-and-so is just getting signed on. We need a manager. We'd love for you to come on board. Okay? Does anybody think that might be a conflict of interest? Could be. How close is that manager to that label? Will that manager be fighting for his or her client as opposed to maintaining a good working relationship with the label? So there's that management, and then there's the artist developer. I was always an artist developer. I liked artists from scratch, whether they were songwriters, whether they were artists themselves. I've managed producers, I've managed engineers. I like when they're first starting out, because then we can really develop a career path together, and we develop a strategy that makes sense. Very different skill sets, okay? The artist manager that's known by the labels is connected to the labels, is a networker, has spent a lot of time meeting a lot of people, and they trust that individual. An artist manager needs to understand live performance from a developmental point of view if they're going for the new artists, for the unknown artists. I think one of the most important ideas that managers have is how to brand their artist, how to brand their client. Jackie introduced me and talked about Madonna. Madonna was a one of a kind when I saw her. And I said to myself as a manager, and I had managed before, that was not my first client. It was the first client that I had that blew up that way. But I had other artists before that were on record labels and all. But what I saw in Madonna was, such a different client, so different. Was she a songwriter? No, she wasn't. Did she have a stellar voice? No, she didn't and doesn't. But is she one of the best performers back then that I had ever seen? And the answer was a resounding yes. I saw that as very, very important. And I think live performance is what gives an artist longevity. And these are opinions that I've developed as a manager, okay? You watch, you look, you listen, you see who hits. For a long, long time, I played armchair quarterbacking when I worked at record labels. Who would hit, who wouldn't hit, what were the songs that were hits? But in doing that, it wasn't just a game. It was me honing my ears and my eyes in terms of who's a hit, what's a hit. You have to know that the individual you're signing onto a management agreement has a chance, maybe even a better than average chance of making it. So selection is really important, okay? You pick an artist that you believe the industry needs, that is capable of doing everything they need to do to be successful, that can be articulate and great in front of the media, that is free from any kind of substance problems. You don't really need it. It's hard enough, you know. You also have to understand that if they hit, as a manager, you have a whole new set of problems. Fame comes in a very harsh way to people. You're famous all of a sudden. You can't walk into rooms by yourself. Your life changes completely. Some big artists actually feel like they're in prison. And that manager is responsible for bringing as much normalcy to that artist's life as possible. Very, very difficult, very hard. You have to be protective, and at the same time, you have to foster independence. You have to deal with family members. You have to be half psychologist and the rest business. Because again, I think that goes across the board. I think you have to be that way in the business of entertainment because we're dealing again, as I said in the beginning of this talk, with living, breathing commodities, okay? Remember that phrase. It's very, very important. I'm writing a book about the entertainment industry, per se. It's about 30% memoir about my journey, but it's about 70% of how the music industry works. But I'm using stories. I'm using firsthand experiences of executives like Sylvia Rohn and Linda Perry and people like that, Joe Galante, people like that, so that the reader can understand exactly how this business works from the human perspective, okay? You guys are reading a lot of books, you're doing a lot of projects, but the truth of the matter is, until you get out on the street, until you're sitting across a desk from someone who has a contract that you want, okay, you're not going to understand how to apply all that factual information onto a real world, real life experience and situation. It's eye-opening. It's very, very interesting. I started with a recording studio first, and started my management company inside the recording studio. And it was very helpful. I could see all the artists coming through. I had worked at record labels, so record labels were sending their clients, their artist roster to me. But I got to hang with a lot of people and a lot of managers that helped me to learn how to be a manager. And you can't do it alone, and you can't do it in a vacuum. I strongly urge you to take as many experiences in this business as possible and use the data that you gather to decide whether or not management is right for you. Now, it's not all glory. There's a lot of guts that you have to bring into this business. It's often called the hair shirt of the music business because it's painful sometimes. It's painful to walk and watch an artist on stage and not be able to do anything to help them once you've worked with them. That, for me, that was like the craziest thing is when they go on stage, they're gone. You can't help. There's nothing you can advise them to do. They're on their own. And if they're having a bad night, you're having a bad night. There have been times as an artist manager that I haven't even been able to watch. I'd have to walk out of the room because it was just not going right. But you take a pause, you become supportive, you grab that artist later on down the line and you say, okay, we'll discuss this whole performance later on. So you have to be soothing, you have to be knowledgeable, you have to be understanding, you have to be diagnostic, and you have to be remedial. You have to understand if there's a problem, how do you fix it? So it's about contingencies, it's about high-end energy, it's about deep, deep knowledge of the music industry. It's probably one of the most exciting aspects of the music business you want. I cannot tell you what it feels like to see one of the clients that I've had in the past walk out on stage and kill it and slay it. You live vicariously through it. If you want to be a star yourself, don't be a manager. Okay, that's not what you want to be. But if you want to be behind the scenes and work to make someone as successful as possible, for me, this is the only show in town. Okay. With that, I'll open it up for some questions. Thank you. questions right in front here. I think we need microphones. I'll let you just do the microphone thing.
Hey, I have a quick question just about the industry and how labels work, etc.
Okay, okay.
My name is Lee Chow, and I'm a recording arts major here who's just completing his first year, and things have been going well, and I'm really enjoying it so far.
Excellent.
Well, relevantly, what I wanted to ask was, how do labels specifically invest in artists? For example, what type of things do they do for artists that they are fond of and that they really promote in terms of how they would invest in an artist based upon the shows that the artist performs, or the types of events that the artist works at or does, and et cetera, and also just the types of resources that the artist receives also.
The type of what?
Resources that the artist receives.
Okay.
So how do they invest, basically?
Primary objective of a record label is what? To sell music, right? Either that's in streaming or digital download, and now we've got vinyl coming back, and there's still CDs. Okay, that's their primary objective. So the first thing that they're willing to spend money on is promotion, or at least they should be. And I can't tell you enough how many contracts don't specify how many dollars are going to be allocated to promotion. You have to ask. You have to be specific. Okay. So promotion. Obviously, there's a signing advance in most instances. It's recoupable, meaning it's kind of a loan, but it's a loan against income from the record deal, from the recording deal. All right. So they'll give you an advance. They'll give you promotional money, sometimes tour support, sometimes artist development money, but very rare. Okay, it's very unusual. In the olden days, it used to be that labels were responsible for developing artists, and I mentioned it. Not any longer. So unless you, as a manager, specifically ask, "What are you going to do? What are you going to spend? What's my budgets?" Okay, you have to kind of pray. Another thing that they're going to spend money on is the actual recording. Either they're going to buy the master, lease the master, or give you the money to go into the studio and create one. Right? That's usually how it's done. Now, sometimes it's just for a couple of songs. Let's see how it goes. It's not for a full 5-album deal or longer deals. Again, your manager is going to be working very closely with an attorney to get the best deal possible. So those are the areas where they'll spend money on. And the resources that the artist gets, there's a publicist, okay? There's usually a publicist. There's a creative person that's going to be helping with cover art, posters, merch, all that kind of stuff. But that's basically it. Labels are not going to commit unless they're sure their investment is protected. So they're going to see how it goes in the beginning, and as it progresses, if it continues to improve, they're going to continue to spend money. But they have formulas, so they're not going to spend an astronomical amount of money and not be able to recoup it. So they'll keep their investment low in the beginning, and as your artist improves and advances, they kind of open up the wallet and put out some more dollars. So that's it. Next.
Well, first, thank you for coming to share your knowledge with us.
My pleasure.
My name's Freddie Jacobs. I'm in music production.
Hi, Freddie.
And I had kind of two questions. You said you were the manager for Madonna. How long were you actually the manager for Madonna?
Okay. 4 years.
4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was specifically wanting to know about the process of rebranding, or helping with the rebranding of the artist.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, I just did a project not too long ago, and the album Hard Candy.
Mm-hmm.
I know that was type of different for Madonna.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to know if you had any, knowledge to share on like the process, or how hard it is, or with the rebranding process. Rebranding
gets easier as the artist's career develops. The labels are not going to allow for rebranding in the beginning because they want every dollar to count on a specific type of product. So they're not going to say, okay, you did pop this week, let's do country next week. It's not going to work that way. Rebranding it's a luxury, rebranding. Sometimes it's a necessity. If you think about somebody like Katy Perry, she had 4 record deals. They rebranded her 4 times, from gospel to pop. She did dance. She's the rebranding queen. But she had a really good manager who really worked very hard to give the label what they wanted. Now, in each instance, the label signed her for a specific type of artist. And then that failed. So rebranding very often will mean a shift in your team, too. Someone like Madonna has an unusual luxury. Not many artists have that, if you think about all the different permutations she's gone through. But it came very late in her career, when you can kind of do anything you want because you have a substantial and loyal core audience. When you have that, then you can rebrand your brains out. But if you don't have that, you're losing momentum every time you rebrand. You're losing the people from the last genre of music, or they're saying, oh, she sold out. You know, if you hear that Billie Eilish thing. I mean, if Billie were to do a country album, I got a feeling people would go a little nuts, you know. If Ariana Grande did, a jazz album with Tony Bennett, the way Lady Gaga did, it would be a little bit problematic. But interestingly enough, Ariana Grande is doing a duet with Barbra Streisand. So go figure that out, right? Is that rebranding? I'm going to ask you. Oh, is it? Well, they're doing the remake of Enough is Enough. Okay, so it's still in Ariana's product mode. It's in her pocket, okay? But what they're doing is they're feeding a new audience, Ariana Grande. That's Streisand's audience. So older people are going to say, "Oh, look, Ariana Grande." So that is kind of it's kind of a remarketing more than a brand, okay? A real change in brand is the Tony Bennett, Lady Gaga thing. I mean, that's like kind of out there, but there are no rules with Lady Gaga, it seems. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Alexander Baird. I'm an entertainment business student here at Full Sail. If you were to give yourself advice when you were 19 years old, what would you give yourself?
Become a veterinarian. No. I don't think I would have changed anything. I think the advice, I worked at a record label. I needed to work at a record label, and I knew that. And I needed to have a job that was going to tell me as much as I possibly could find out about the industry. So I lucked out and became the head of new release coordination for it was Columbia Records then, okay, which meant I was responsible for making sure the 28 different departments that make recordings were on time and happening. So I learned contingencies, but I learned every aspect of the business, from what we had to do to copyright the songs to getting advanced recordings approved by the artist. I once sat in the hallway of Bob Dylan for almost a day and a half, waiting for him to approve what then was called test pressings. And it was the first pressing of the recording, so that you could hear whether or not it was exactly what you wanted it to sound like, if the mix was right, if the mastering was correct, if there was too much compression, all those kinds of things. So I got there, and I was in love. The minute my cousins were in the industry, they were engineers, and I sat in the studio and I went like, this is for me. I mean, you can wear jeans, it's nighttime, you know, it was like, this is like great business, you know, this is a fabulous business. And it is, it's probably one of the most exciting businesses around. It keeps you young, it keeps you excited. So the advice I gave myself is the advice I would keep, and it happens to be the advice I'm giving you guys today. Learn everything you possibly can about this business. Regardless of where you wind up, the more you learn, the more opportunities you have to make a decision and a choice that fits the way it fits for me. I still get excited when I work with a young artist. I worked with an 11-year-old recently, and it was just an exciting process to teach him how to interpret songs and have audience interaction and how to record in a studio. And I wouldn't change my life in any way, but my advice is to learn and learn and learn. This is not something you just wing, artist management. You really have to have a command of the industry. Next.
I'm Trutha. I had a question. One of my questions is when it comes to your endorsements and your deal, is it true that do you have to be an artist before you can sign your endorsement deal and just endorsements and stuff like that? Is that true?
By endorsements, you mean a product endorsement or something like that? Well, you have to understand who's offering the endorsement deal. You don't have to be an artist, but you do have to be a personality or an entity or an influencer that's going to bring a number of people to that product. So you have to have a high profile.
Okay.
Regardless of what part of the business you're in, you have to be known for something.
So it doesn't. So when you say that, so that means a person can just get signed by a label, or just get signed by a movie deal, and then they can receive their endorsements. Can a manager search and see if they can get their endorsements? I don't know how to explain it.
I think I know what you're asking here. With a record deal or any kind of a deal, you now have a vehicle to reach a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right? So sometimes, let's say the song is perfect, okay, for a specific product. As a manager, you can go to the advertising agency and say, hey, I have this product and I have this artist and it's perfect for your product. Maybe we could do a deal together, which is more like a licensing deal. It's like a strategic partnership, it's a strategic marketing deal and all. Again, you have to be a resourceful manager. You have to think, what equals what. Like I had an artist that wrote a song, they were on EMI, called 15 Minutes to Rock. And I knew somebody at the Dallas Cowboys, a football team, and what's the length of a quarter? 15 minutes. So I called them up, I said, I have this idea, So I worked with the record label put some money up, I worked with the NFL, I worked with everybody, and we did a football game where the artists were there, and at every quarter they played 15 Minutes to Rock. And it served as an incredible vehicle. This is got to be really creative as a manager. And don't take no for an answer. And don't think something's impossible. Don't sit there and say, the NFL will never take my call. I called 25 times, Back to rejection gives me energy. You just have to stick with it if you believe in something, but make your choice a wise choice when you believe, okay? If it's flawed, don't go for it.
I have another question. I'm sorry.
Do we have time for one more? Yeah. And I
so
think that you
how
there.
so how do artists, and not just artists but anybody, define the right management? Like, who do we see to? Like, can you give us names?
It's a very difficult situation because first off, there are not a lot of managers. First thing you want to do is you just want to maybe just grab a Polestar directory and take a look at who all the artist managers are out there and who they're managing, because it says it there. So you get an idea of the types of music and the types of managers that are married. And then you can go from there as an artist if you're looking for a manager. I tell you, I would find a graduate of Full Sail that went through the business class, that really knows what's going on, did some internships. If I was an unknown manager, and I would say, let's form a partnership as an artist. I'd say, let's work together to make something happen. Those things really work. There's an A&R process even with managers that are high-end managers. They have a glut of music that they have to listen to just the way the record labels do. And a lot of managers stay with a very small roster because it's very, very difficult to manage a lot of different artists or manage similar artists because there's built-in conflict of interest.
I had one more question. So what type of artist did you, or you still looking for artists, or?
I don't manage anymore. I deal with more individuals like yourself and other people that want to be in the business side of music. And then sometimes I deal with artists as far as artist development is concerned. But I wouldn't manage, I don't want to go on the road. I don't want to go to clubs at night. I've done that. I've paid my dues, So I'm kind of like the armchair manager now. And I like it that way.
Understand. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Trutha.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for taking the time
My
to do
pleasure.
this today.
My pleasure.
Everyone, warm thank you to Camille Barbone.
Thank you so
joining
much.
us.
Thank you. It's also a word that pertains to legal representation. Congratulations in your